3, 2, 1, recording. Welcome to the Davidthedogtrainer podcast, episode 62. 62. Here we are. We have Paige here filming. She's here doing another podcast vlog because guess what? It's St. Patrick's Day, hence the green. I got the old St. Ed's hockey shirt on right now. No, I did not go there. No, I did not play hockey. I went to a golf outing for St. Ed's, and they gave me this for free, so I have it now.
Nice.
But it's green, and I'm wearing it. I got the Guinness in the cup.
Oh.
Guinness in the cup. What time is it? It's 11:17.
It is.
Pour yourself out one. Here we are.
Oh, Lord. Man,
Josh, what's going on?
You know, I'm just not nearly as ready for St. Patty's as you are. I'm really sad about it. But
Wow.
I'm doing well. The weather's been beautiful.
We sure has.
We sat outside for about an hour before this because we didn't want to come inside.
It was really nice out.
Yeah, it was a wonderful
Lounging
time.
on the chairs.
Yes.
Pulling one of those.
Yeah. You probably were before we got here, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you tried to go to Slyman's, right? Before
Tried.
this?
So this morning I woke up at like 7:30, something like that, and I drove all the way to Slyman's Independence, which is like 25 minutes from here, right? Because I looked online last night. I saw 8 a.m. is opening time, right? I pull in. There ain't nobody there.
Oh,
It's like 8:10 at this point, something like that. And I checked my phone, and only the downtown location was open open at 8 a.m. That one opens at 11. So I will be going there right after this podcast.
Okay.
But I did waste like an hour driving, trying to get some corned beef sandwiches.
Try to get that corned beef.
So we'll get it still. It's
Yeah,
all right.
for sure.
All right. But here we are.
Yeah, here we are.
What else is new? Anything?
No, not a whole lot. I mean, I feel so weird because we already kind of talked about it, but I went down to the West 25th building. Big giant things happening down there. Going to be doing photos for 3 restaurants. It's a little sorry.
I was wondering what that was.
I don't know.
I was like, did you do something with your finger?
No, I'm just fidgeting with it. But
right.
coffee roaster and then a fine dining and a small plates restaurant. And it's a lot of money going into that. So. And now I understand, like, the guy that is my contact. He's like, hey, don't skimp. He's like, charge what you need to charge. And now that I've seen everything, I was like, I understand why you said that.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Past just charging what you need to charge for stuff like that, I think it really comes down to, like, it's a bigger project. There's bigger expectations. You're dealing with tighter deadlines, and you have to deliver, right?
Yeah.
This is not that you can get away with not delivering with other people, but, like, with lower budget clients or things like that, it's kind of like the mentality of, like, you get, the attention goes into the work that you get paid to put into the work, right? So this is one you really have to knock out of the park, obviously, and this is one that they're going to be much more demanding of certain things with due to the caliber of the project, which means that it's going to be a higher price point.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like you're just like pulling a number out of your ass and like, oh, this is the same exact thing that I would do for somebody else for a different price. That's not the case at all.
Yeah.
It's just a much bigger and more important job.
Yeah. And, dude, the first thing they have to do, they don't have anything really completely built out yet. And they want to just basically open immediately as soon as possible.
That's all these places.
Yeah.
Though.
So
get that revenue coming.
yeah.
in.
So they're like, yeah, we want to start posting things, but we don't have anything to post.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, so we're just I have to create this narrative basically for each restaurant individually without product, without food, anything. So it's going to be an interesting venture, actually. It's kind of helping them find their what the brand's going to look like before they even have a product.
Before it's done.
Before it's done. So it'll be an interesting time. I'm excited for it, though.
Sounds sweet.
Yeah. How about you?
Nothing's beautiful out. I'm doing as much training outdoors as I possibly can and getting ready for summer.
Yes.
So that's about it. Still got a ton of board and trains, doing a bunch of lessons. I was looking at Paige, you know this. I feel like we need to like pull a mic up and just have it sticking straight out that way, just in case you have anything you need to chime in,
She's our young Jamie right now.
Yeah, right. I was like just scrolling through the the YouTube. I think Instagram is starting to die a little bit. I don't know. Like I feel like it's not as it's not as relevant as a platform as it used to be, you know? Obviously TikTok has been trending and all these other things, but all of those like smaller tier, like micro content platforms, I personally, like, I look at my relationship with those platforms, I have been getting bored of them lately, you know, just from my own consumption standpoint.
Yeah.
So I think we're really kind of at a place right now where something's going to be changing with how we interact with social media, and there's going to be some sort of new thing coming soon, I feel like.
You know, yeah, my big thing was I think Instagram should have just, you know, doubled down on photos. Because it's like all
That's
these...
what it originally was.
Yeah, and everyone else has reels or like, you know, the small videos. I mean, I get they don't want to be irrelevant, but if you were the only one doing that still and like, focusing on that, I think it would have kept you more of a commodity than, you know, just becoming.
I don't
everything
disagree
else.
with that, because right now, like, even the newest trend Instagram just came out with that we actually need to start using here soon is you can now, you know how you could reply to comments with videos on TikTok? You know that, right? So, like, you can click the comment and then I could film something. You could do that on Instagram now. They just launched that like 2 days ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but my point is, every new feature that Instagram has come out with lately has been just a carbon copy of something that TikTok is doing.
Yeah,
right? So, yes, they're just trying to copy them, and they're not doing it probably as well.
No.
So, to your point, yeah, you have to do something that's going to kind of separate you from that a little bit.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
And just... this goes hand in hand with what we're going to talk about today, which we just spent the last hour outside talking about all sorts of juicy, good content. And we probably should have been filming a podcast talking about. But, like, basically, you know, unfortunately, I think some of, like, newer social media and stuff has created this new era of, forget dog trainers, just professionals or people that, you know, have some sort of like occupation or passion or something like that, that because everything is delivered in such micro bits of content, it's forcing people to come up with things solely for the purpose of entertainment and solely for the purpose of satisfying that like tiny bit of our brain that could digest entertainment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was saying, you know, like a lot of the, I for a while was staying very out of the loop of newer dog trainers. You know, I stayed up to date with a lot of the older popular dog trainers and what they were doing and stuff like that, and staying current on that kind of stuff. But I didn't really follow a lot of the new people blowing up on TikTok and blowing up on Instagram and stuff like that until recently. Like, a lot of it has been popping up in my Explore section lately. And literally, man, the massive following some of these people have acquired, right? 100, 200, 300, 500,000 followers. And you go on their page and their whole page is just micro content that is not even showcasing half the time dog training in the first place, right? They're just current trends on TikTok and Instagram and all that kind of stuff, right? And they're solely for the purpose of entertaining people as opposed to actually showcasing the craft is really, really disheartening. You know, I mean, like, it's like I look at this kind of stuff and I was kind of getting like a little fired up outside when we were talking about it, because it's like, again, like I do this stuff because I love this craft. I love the craft of dog training.
Yeah.
Right. It's like there's this burning passion that I have that, you know, goes in and outs of different aspects of obviously the craft. Right. But I have this passion to continue learning and growing that and doing better and better and better work. Right. Even stuff as simple as like Paige and I have had a couple good conversations lately, like while we were filming the vlog, like at the end of the day, where we're talking about just like current things that I'm trying with board and trains. Like, I've been doing this for almost 10 years now, right? And I'm still experimenting and trying to find ways that I could do better for the dogs, better for the clients, and come up with, you know, just better ways of doing these things to continue fine-tuning and crafting that craft. You know what I mean? And I feel like modern dog trainers, you know, the way to get popular and the way to make a lot of money right now is to entertain people and not provide as good of a craft and not have as much emphasis on that, right? And I feel like all of them are coming into this with, one, the wrong role models, right, that they're looking at of people that are doing dog training, right? And, you know, because they have the wrong role models that don't care about perfecting this craft, they only care about entertaining people, they're coming at it at an even lower tier of things. Right? And still putting all the emphasis on just entertaining people as opposed to perfecting the craft. And it's just diluting and diluting and diluting and diluting the industry until we continuously keep running into more situations where, you know, the other day we were doing an in-home lesson with a human aggressive dog, and the girl was like, literally when I was like researching trainers, like I was blown away by how many freaking trainers. Do you remember when she said that? How many trainers there were in Cleveland, like alone? She's like, I think it was like 3 years prior, 4 years prior, something like that. She did dog training with one of her other dogs. And she's like, I don't remember there being so many back then.
Yeah.
But now there's so freaking many, you know? And listen, everybody starts somewhere. Like, I'm not here to say like new trainers are bad by any means, right? But the problem is a lot of these people are promoting themselves as people that are going to help with these types of issues, but they got no knowledge on how to do it because they don't have any emphasis on perfecting the craft. They're just entertaining people.
Yeah. Well,
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think that, you know, I don't want to call them clout chasers, but, you know, they're in it for this popularity. They're not really in it for the dog training. They're kind of skimming the surface. And I think, you know, after a couple of years, these people are just going to fall off because they're like, well, this isn't what I thought it was going to be, and it's not as popular as blah, 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 whatever. But they're going to figure out that, I kind of suck at this, you know, at the end of the day.
Well, listen, you know, so zipping all the way back around here to what I was originally saying. So I was on, let me pull this up here real quick, pull up our YouTube channel here. So, you know, I was just on my phone, like looking at our YouTube channel, and
Why does it look so weird?
it does look a little funny. Why does it look like that?
I don't know.
I'm unsure. Paige, how do I fix this? I don't know. Whatever. So long story short, what I was kind of getting at though is like I'm looking through this. Yeah, what the fuck?
I don't know.
But like literally in the last this is 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
Here we are. 2 weeks. All of this. That's 2 weeks worth of freaking content that we put out. And look at the lengths of these videos.
Yeah.
40 minutes, 15 minutes. Obviously, we got all our shorts, 45 minutes, an hour and 15 minutes, 45 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, 15 minutes. We are putting so much goddamn content out right now on YouTube. Like, it's almost stupid how much content we're putting out on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
And again, what I'm kind of coming back to with all of this, and what we're going to tie this all into, obviously, is when I first started training dogs, YouTube was the place to get information to learn how to train dogs.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't looking for how do I create the next cool little short? How do I create a fancy little reel that's going to grab somebody's attention in 3 seconds? I was learning how to train a fucking dog.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what we're trying to do with all this content that we're putting out right now.
Yeah.
We're trying to teach people not how to entertain. Listen, there's entertainment in this. Like, I'm not going to deny that we're a media company, you know, through the stuff that we're putting out to some extent.
Yeah.
But every single one of these videos is for the purpose of teaching you how to better your craft. And that's what we're going to dive into today. We're going to dive into 2 different people that were essential in my upbringing in dog training, right? Awesome. You know, I get so, you know, like it gets so easy to look at the bad, right? Like we've spent hours looking at dog trainers. That's like, God, why are they doing this? God, why are they doing this? And it's like beating your head against the wall, like how frustrating it is sometimes, right? Because of the purpose of entertainment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
These are people that just really, really, really care about doing good dog training, right? So we'll introduce both of our guests here today. So first one, we've talked about this guy many a time. We got to fucking figure out what the deal is going on with this video. First guy here, Michael Ellis. I've talked about Michael Ellis a lot. So Michael Ellis, he blew up on Learberg. Learberg is a dog training company that specializes in like competition, obedience, protection sports, things like that, et cetera, et cetera. And Michael Ellis was like a pioneer of a lot of the modern methods that we use today, right? Incorporating marker training and positive reinforcement training with the balance of different types of training tools and collars and just leveraging precision with it and just, again, just really, really good dog training, right? So he's one person. We're going to dig into some videos here. He has a DVD that I've talked about numerous times on the podcast called The Power of Training Dogs with Food, which one of these days we're going to do a podcast where we just watch the whole freaking thing and talk about it because it's so good. I recommend everybody checks it out. But Michael Ellis was my very, very, very first person I was introduced to dog training when I started professionally doing this. Forget the trainers I worked with, like that I hired. When I first started training dogs, basically, the person I worked for gave me that DVD, said, watch this, memorize absolutely everything in it, and just do nothing but it.
Yeah.
And listen, I learned so much from doing it. And listen, there's holes as far as, modern dog training and how I would incorporate it slightly differently and this and that. But everything in it is accurate to a T. So we're just going to dig into, he's got a bunch of videos on YouTube and stuff like that we'll kind of watch and kind of get a feel for.
Yeah.
Other person, Tyler Muto, right? I've talked about Tyler quite a bit here. Tyler owns a company called Canine Connection out in Buffalo. And Tyler was /is, my mentor when I first started training dogs, right? So Tyler, I discovered through Learberg, picked him up for a little bit, right? And started doing some videos. And he was an avid Michael Ellis fan and that kind of training and stuff like that. But he took all of those concepts and instead of in Michael Ellis's case, he applies it to competition dog training, and he does some pet dog training, but it's primarily the competition aspect. Tyler really, really pushed the envelope as far as how to incorporate those methods into modern day pet dog training and specifically behavioral modification and stuff. And listen, some of these videos we're going to watch are 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying all of it is 100% perfect, accurate, nor does he do half of this stuff the way that he did in these videos anymore because he's like me, constantly innovating his style. Right?
Yeah.
And he's somebody I don't talk to as much as I used to, but I'll tell you, like I said, still kind of a mentor. He is still somebody that I reach out to from time to time if I'm having issues with things, whether from a actual dog training standpoint or the guy has ran a successful business for a very freaking long time. He's helped me with things like that before and stuff as well. So we're going to dig into some of his videos as well and just kind of watch some things and just kind of see what we get with stuff.
Cool.
So sounds exciting, right?
Yeah.
All right, let me sip this.
Okay.
God,
Maybe. Should we pause it and try to figure this out too?
Yeah, we're going to pause and do some technical.
All
right, we're back. I think we fixed it. I don't know what was going on. Couple unplugs, replugs back in. Couple.
Knock on wood. Yeah.
Bopping it on the side. Turn it off. Turn it back on. Okay, so as we were talking about, we're going to get into some videos here. So we're going to go in order of operation here. So I started with Michael Ellis. So we are going to we're going to get into some Michael Ellis stuff as well. So let's see what we got here. So some of these videos, these are newer videos that I haven't seen before, right? So a lot of the Michael Ellis stuff that I've seen in the past has been old Michael Ellis stuff, right? We're talking 12, 13, 14 years ago Michael Ellis stuff. So let's just start digging into here. So how to correct reactivity in moderation. Let's see what he's got to say about
The first time I came across Chloe's story, I was actually watching the news.
Cases of animal abuse they have ever
Oh my God, get the ads out of here.
Ooh, the music.
I have a dog that's always been very vocal. So if she's rolling on the floor playing with a toy, she growls and snacks.
I'll tell you real quick, Michael Ellis is only it's 43 or something.
What?
Dude looks old.
He's seen some shit.
He's seen some shit. There's a guy, Todd, that I used to do protection sports with, that knew Michael Ellis and stuff. He said one time, he's like, man, that dog training school, he's like, it's aged him. It's aged him.
And she has a little bit of fear issue as well. So early on, when I was trying to solve my problem, people said, don't take the growl out of it because then you're not going to know when she's going to want to fight. So I can be in a building with 20 people, 20 dogs. She doesn't care about anything. Someone can walk through the door and she'll go off. So if I see that person coming, I immediately redirect, start getting her busy doing things so she doesn't react to them.
Yeah.
So I know I did this wrong, but I was at an agility trial and I take food and I manage to the ring. And she's focused on me, focused on her food, and we're next to run. And a lady walks up and goes, "Hi, sweetie." And I was horrified because she's not sweet, lady, take your hand off her face. But the gate was there. I couldn't move her away from the situation. Her eyes kind of got a little big and she went, "Grr." And she knows the word good, so I used that as a calming word. Not that I was trying to.
Did you see the face he just made? She's like, I used the word good as a calming word. And he's like, ah.
Growl was good, but I was trying to regain her calmness in that moment. So, thoughts on a dog that's very vocal and a little bit afraid of.
So you're right. That in that situation, you did that wrong, right?
You did that
Because you encouraged her, yeah, good job, do that, do more of that. So it would have been poke in the butt. flip around to me, like, nope, nope, don't do that. Like, come on, knock it off, and you get away from me, right? Kind of thing, right? Yeah, is that a thing? But growling, so
real quick, just a solution for that, right? So reactive dog growled at another person. Now, we're not necessarily going to correct the dog just for growling, but the idea of like, hey, don't do that, redirect onto something else, no problem with that. You know what I mean? Like that's he clearly told her what she did was incorrect, right? You technically speaking, because the dog knows good is a positive, it didn't calm the dog. You actually just reinforced it a little bit. Told her, hey, that's actually good. Where what we want to do is we want to redirect the focus. Don't do this instead. That's kind of the philosophy of dog training and balanced dog training in general. Consequence for this, reward for this. Consequence for this, reward for this. And he even discussed in this, he said it in half a second, right? He even said, like kind of right there very briefly, the idea here is varying the intensity of your correction, right? We're still correcting for the behavior because a correction is just applying some sort of aversive to change the dog's behavior. In his case, he described the aversive as something even as gentle as just kind of giving the dog a little poke on the side to shift their attention away, then rewarding for the proper thing. But that's correct philosophy. Let's keep going.
growling comes from a lot of different places, right? So you mentioned there are dogs that growl when they play, right? Growling can be arousal in dogs, and growling can be a threat display in dogs. A dog could be warning you like, hey, I'm stressed, look out, right? I'm ready to do it, right? And there is this theory that if you punish a dog for growling, if you correct a dog that's growling out of threat, you need to make the distinction. His dog's growling out of arousal, right? He's a noisy dog when he plays, right? Right? That's excitement, it's arousal, some dogs just do that, right? Nothing to do with threat display, they're not uneasy, they're having a good time, they do it. Rottweilers growl when you pet them, and they're rubbing on you, and they're dogs that are vocal that way. There is a dog that growls when they're stressed or when they're threatening you, and you do need to treat that differently. I don't believe that punishing the growling makes the growling go away and have the dog go straight to biting. That's a kind of reward-based thing. But what you can do is you can create increased anxiety in the dog. So I want to be careful about the level of correction that I use. I want to tell the dog, I don't like that.
I mean, like, I feel weird even adding my commentary to this because he's saying it in such a better way than like even I could. You know, like you're not going to do away with the warning side of the dog is going to go right to biting. Again, that is a positive only mentality of, oh, well, like, you know, you just don't correct your dog ever because you could make things worse kind of mentality, right? But you have to ask yourself, is the correction really warranted in this situation? Because there's outside variables, right? If I'm always correcting my dog for growling, which it's not inappropriate to correct the dog for growling, right? But I'm not addressing the outside factors of why the dog is growling, you still can put the dog in a vulnerable position where the stressful thing is still happening to them that's causing them to growl in the first place, and then you're adding more stress by then punishing for the display of discomfort. You know what I mean? So it's good. You know what I mean? Like, it's fucking good dog training.
Don't do that. You don't need to do that. I know you're uncomfortable. Don't do that, right? Because this can escalate. Growling is a precursor to aggression, right?
And one other point on growling we always talk about, and the reason why it doesn't shift directly to a bite is because, as he's kind of saying, it's a precursor, right? Dogs have a sequence of escalation that they typically will go through, right? Sequence of escalation. They start getting uncomfortable. They display a growl. The growl turns into more of like a teeth bare. The teeth bare turns into a warning snap. The warning snap turns into attacking. You know what I mean? And typically speaking, these dogs have to go through that entire sequence before they get to the bite. So by stopping the sequence closer to the beginning, it's not going to just eliminate that step and have it start right here. It's just not going to allow it to get to that point. Again, as long as you are addressing the outside variable as well.
I'm not going to correct the growl out of them and they're going to get quiet and then just go straight to attacking somebody. But if I correct them too strongly for growling, they were already worried about the person, and now they're more worried about the person, right? I didn't solve my problem. I made them even more stressed. And so then they may try to avoid the person when they come up next time, but if they can't avoid, then they overreact. So when they do bite, they bite too much. They don't moderate their threat display. They give it all they've got. They're like, I'm trying to avoid you, I'm trying to avoid you, oh God, oh God, oh God. So when a dog defensive bites, a bite where they're feeling threatened, they give it your all. Like if somebody jumped out to mug you in an alley, you're not gonna fight by Marcus of Queensberry rules, you're gonna get everything you got.
Again, I don't even like adding my commentary to because it's good by itself.
Yeah.
Right. But one other point with that here, this is like what we talked about in the episode we did with the fighting dogs. And I don't want to eliminate completely a dog's ability to communicate, because if you tell them you can't communicate at all, like he's just saying, they bottle it up and avoid and bottle it up and avoid until they no longer can do so. And because they haven't been taught how to properly display discomfort, it just goes, it escalates through the sequence too rapidly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the whole sequence becomes more intense than at that point, right?
Bite, kick, go as hard as you can, right? And so dogs that are feeling stressed have a tendency, very stressed, tend to overreact when they do. So I don't want to make the underlying anxiety worse, but I want to tell the dog, like, that's not appropriate. Don't do that. So I tend to go, no, pop, pop, spin them around, tap, tap, reward, 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 reward. Like here, that person's fine. You don't need to worry about it. Here's the rewards. Don't do that, right? If I got myself in that situation. So I would stop it, but I would stop it with moderation. Not, no, wham, that kind of thing. That's going to get you in trouble. The dog's going to say, you're not going to extinguish growling, and that dog's not going to go straight from quiet to biting. That dog's going to, next time somebody comes up, that dog's going to be like, ah, crap. Oh man, and they'll start freaking out. You make their fear worse, right? They thought, I already thought this was a bad situation, and now you confirm my suspicions. It's definitely a bad situation. It's actually worse than I thought. I was afraid of that person, and now I'm worried you're going to pound me too, right? And so you do have to be careful about the intensity.
Good little video. Now the only thing I'll say with that is, he talks about this in the context of just the growling. This is just in general, right? In general, you don't want to go over the top with your corrections. Our philosophy is always as little pressure as we can, but as much as we need to, whether it's for correcting for growling, whether it's for correcting a dog for not sitting, whatever it may be, because the same context, let's take a sit, for example, right? Dog doesn't sit because they're blowing me off because they're staring at the person across the street or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And I go right in with like a level 13 intensity correction, completely unnecessary. It's going to accomplish getting the dog to not be distracted by that. But then anytime I ask my dog to sit initially until they start to get kind of desensitized to it and realize really what the parameter is, they're going to have this ridiculous, over-the-top, dramatic response to that word. And it's going to create some stress because they don't want to get that insane correction. Where if they're just distracted by something over there and they're not super aroused or anything, I could get away with a much less correction for that, which will still accomplish the same thing of getting their attention off of it. But then I won't have all of this kind of side effect of stress that I'll have to then rebuild the dog back up from.
Yeah.
Question
on that. So let's say you're using a lower correction and it's not working, like the dog's just blowing it off. Sure. How do you work it up and not just make a big...
Good question. So I do tend to follow a principle of just making sure that your increase in intensity of correction is dramatic enough where the next one they won't be able to tolerate as easily, right? I'm still not going to go from, let's say I'm using an e-collar just so we can have numbers we could use. Let's say I correct the dog at a 10 and they blow 10 off. I'm not going to go straight to 100 from there, right? But I'm also not going to go from 10 to 15, then 15 to 20, then 20 to 25, because the dog will little by little kind of habitualize themselves to that and be like, I could tolerate a little more. I could tolerate a little more. And you could actually make them require a much higher correction by doing that. Maybe I'll go from 10 to 30. Then 30 to 50, you know what I mean? And I'll go in larger jumps so that next one is significantly more motivating so that I don't push them up more, right? Because nagging is a very real thing that can actually make behavioral issues worse as well.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's finding that fine line, right? Of I'm going to up the intensity enough where they're going to care a lot more than the one before, but not too much where I'm overdoing it.
Yeah.
All right.
The only other thing I could say is he needs a page in his life.
He does.
A little better videos, you know?
Yeah, you know.
That good quality. Especially that mic.
I'm actually going to go work for him.
Yeah.
Honestly, I wouldn't even be mad about it. Because then I would get better Michael Ellis content to watch myself. I might just pay you to go work for him, Paige.
Just shows up at his facility like, I was paid to be here.
All right. Michael Ellis on dogs that should not be protection trained. Oh, by the way, I don't want to divert too much. Ironically, remember what we talked about with that dog walker that got like mauled by those two dogs? Yeah. So just yesterday, last night, they released a video interview with her where she came out. She is disfigured as shit. I mean, unbelievably disfigured from that attack, obviously. And it was insane. Like I read the article associated with it, and I was actually, that was going to be something we were going to talk about. It. We'll save that for next time maybe. But it was brutal, dude. I mean, a lot more details kind of came out about what happened and stuff like that. Stuff is crazy. Let's get ready for this, right? So when the police were called to the incident, because I guess it triggered an alarm, which caused the police to just come, luckily, right?
Yeah.
This is almost ridiculous. Joe Mendez actually texted it to me last night, which is why I found out about it, right? So the police got to the house, and it took them 37 minutes to get into the house because the dogs were keeping them at bay. And they said the reason why they didn't just shoot the dogs and go in the house was because they didn't know the extent of the injuries because they could only see her feet laying on the ground. Shoot the fucking dogs and go in the house.
Yeah.
37
minutes?
37 minutes.
She's lucky she didn't bleed out.
Dude. It's ridiculous. We'll review it at a later time. Okay, but this goes hand in hand with that. Michael Ellis on dogs that should not be protection trained. Yeah. All right, here we go.
It's not so much channeling. Usually if the dog starts to go backwards, then we'll turn off the pressure and run, or we'll give the dog a bite and quickly bail out and let them win or something like that. That's a warning sign. So if the dog is starting to go backwards, like we're in big trouble. Like that's the opposite response that we want from them in defense, right? So again, defensive expressions can be very forward or very backward, right? So a dog that comes out and I stare at the dog and the dog says, oops, and runs from me, right? Which they're out there. That's coming from the same place as the dog that launches at me and bites me in defensive circumstances. So it's exactly the same place. So what happens is when the dog starts to go away, we need to immediately alleviate stress, right? No, you can't go like, okay, what we hope to do is make the backing stuff go away by giving another response. So what happens is if they're backing up, that means I went too far and I should have alleviated the stress at the first time they showed any kind of aggression towards me, right? So maybe what happens, this is the first thing.
Real quick, just kind of helping people understand this, because unless you know protection dog training, this is going to be complicated. So one way that we train protection dogs, right, is essentially we'll back tie a dog, right? And we'll kind of agitate them a little bit, you know, and teach them that they kind of have control over what we're doing, right? So I'll say you're the dog. I'll kind of stare at you, give you a funny look, you know?
Yeah.
And then you'll go, woof. And I'll go, whoa.
Yeah.
Right? And then, you know, we talked about this with the freaking Tom Davis video, right? And then I'll continue doing that to get the dog to kind of empower them to start reacting to those types of things, right? So what he's saying is dogs that naturally have a flight instinct when they're stressed, you don't want to apply more pressure in those situations. And I'm interpreting here, right? Because that's, a positive response. And two, if you start applying more pressure in those situations, you create a huge liability of a dog that's scared as opposed to confident and then starts biting out of fear, which is not what you want. When you look at like true personal protection dogs, which again, listen to our protection dog episode. I don't condone or recommend really having them, you know, like real ones, right? And also clarifying, Michael Ellis does his protection sport work is, we call it like sport protection work. So the dog is not biting a person. The dog is biting a toy, you know what I mean, basically, right? But if you're tapping into that true fear drive, which some people will do, dog is scared, you continue to agitate until they bite and then reinforce that, you create a liability of a dog that is not in control of their behaviors. They're just acting instinctually off of fear.
Yeah.
So
they have a dog that's not so strong, that has a defensive response, but it's not such a strong defensive response. So it's there, and I start to come towards it like this, and it growls. Right? If I keep coming, boom, it takes off. What I should have done is when it growled, I should have gone, whoa. Oh. It growls, whoa.
To create the confidence.
And then I come forward again, and now it growls, and I push a little more, and it goes, rah! And then I run, right? So if I push, you don't know. That same dog, I might have kept pushing, and he might have come right out to bite me, too. He growled, and then if I kept pushing, he might have said, come here, sucker, I'll get you. Like, if you come in here, then all right. So, but we don't know if it's not a dog that I've worked. I don't know. So my thing is to give to their first sign initially to be safe. So if the dog's backing up, it meant I went too far. we need to alleviate this stress. So then I run and I reset myself. I make distance further. I do whatever I need to make the dog's response forward so that I can reward a forward response. But I don't have any choice. Ideally, I would not want to reward a backward response, but I don't have a choice at that point. As soon as the dog's backing up, they're telling you they're getting ready to avoid. They may run, right? And if I keep pushing and waiting for a forward response, I may not get it. Now that's where people do table training and other stuff like that. But to me, these dogs that have that much backward response, normally for me, that would be a deal breaker right there. I'll stop working you in protection, period. And that's it. Like, you don't need to. Unless the dog's just a phenomenal prey biter or something outside of that and hasn't seen much defense work, I'm not going to do that, work that dog that way anymore, right? It's basically like, okay, this is not for you.
So he referenced table training, right? So basically table training is what they'll do with more fearful dogs to get more of that defensive drive out of them. So instead of them like on a back tie where they have the ability to turn around and run away, where they're more in control of things, table training is basically they have something like half the size of this table that has like a clip and a harness on it where the dog is stuck in one spot. So you're truly tapping into flight drive, right? And the inability of it to tap into that fight drive, right? So you could take dogs that are really scared and turn them into freaking monsters, right? By doing that. Again, that's not the type of work that he does, though.
Yeah.
In my opinion, many people will work that dog. I won't. For the dogs that have a very low and unconfident, a low threshold for defensive stimulation, like I can stare at them and make them feel that way, right? And their kind of courage underneath there, their responses are weak. I continue to work with that dog. I'm not going to make that dog into a good bite work dog, but I potentially make that dog dangerous, right?
Like so
I teach them to alleviate stress. So I could take that dog's possible flight responses away from him. I can put him on a table, put him on a short tie against the wall where he can't go anywhere. And I just keep pushing until he finally decides he has no choice but to aggress forward. I alleviate that stress. He wins. Yay, ba, 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 right? So with that dog, then, because he's so low, it's not that he's going to turn from that into a great dog. He's not. I've basically taken the flight response away, and he may bite now, but he's not going to go win competitions and things like that. So now I've taught this dog to bite when he's stressed. When you don't think you can get away from something and it's making you nervous, bite it, and that you'll win. So now I have that dog out in the world. I'm hanging out at the coffee shop, and the homeless guy standing next to me stares at him a little too much, and my dog nails him, right? Oops. And the problem is I didn't turn that dog into a good protection dog. I just made myself a liability. So I taught him, when you're stressed, bite the snot out of somebody, and it'll stop, and that's where it'll stop. So instead of then maybe growling and hackling up and backing away from him, he bites him now, because we taught him that's what you do. Where his normal response would have been to get the hell out of there. So the homeless guy would have stared at him before that a little too much, and the dog would have gone, "Rrr," and you would have gone, hey, knock it off, and you'd have got out of there, and it would have been over. But now the dog sees him and goes, oh, here it is. I got to bite this guy. I don't want him, but I got to. Bam, and he drills the person, right? So those dogs I don't work. Like, again, before in my early stages, and I can't say that I didn't learn a lot about dog behavior from this, because I did. We made all kinds of dogs bite that had no business biting, right? We did all kinds of not good stuff, right? So in personal protection circles, we did things to get dogs that had no interest in this. And then, and again, none of these dogs turned out to be good at this stuff. You know, and we put them through all kinds of unnecessary stress and the rest of it. So now...
So he's getting at, again, like, and this is where, again, because I originally started learning about a lot of this kind of stuff, I learned quite a bit about when you're working with dogs that are acting aggressively, and you look at the ways that people will train dogs to be more aggressive, you could see the correlation between what people are doing intentionally in these types of camps and what people are doing accidentally in the real world that creates the same response, which then allows you to kind of reverse engineer it and figure out how we then alleviate some of that and avoid those problems in the first place by setting in place certain rules, right? Number one reason we don't do on-leash greetings is it's the same concept as table training. We're holding the dog on a short leash. Somebody's coming up agitating the dog, just trying to pet them, obviously, but still to the dog is perceived as agitation in some fearful dog cases.
Yeah.
And then because we're not doing this in a controlled fashion, when the dog reacts and barks, the person goes away. That bark gets more intensified. It reinforces that this works and makes people go away. And this is why people think I'm crazy for saying some of this kind of stuff and having these hard rules with types of things. But this is why. It's literally how you train this stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Me, personally, and everybody has their own moral code when it comes to dogs, but for mine, unless the dog really wants to do this, I'm not working it in protection. And we know right away there are plenty of dogs out here. You see puppies here now that are really enjoying themselves. They really want to bite. They want to come out. They want to.
And then one last point. The dogs that are truly enjoying themselves, right, and are truly doing this from a place of just confidence and fun and sport, you don't run as much the risk of creating those negative habits because it's only happening when the dog is in states of joy, right? And we're playing and we're interacting. And sure, they may take that play and interaction a little too far sometimes, but the majority of the time, it's not going to happen unless you're tapping into that fear drive and teaching them what to do when they're stressed and scared.
Stuff. They're into it. They're generally social, confident dogs away from this stuff. That's the dogs that we should be working in protection work, right? Because there are lots of them. And it doesn't mean that there's not some dog out there. There are some that don't show much interest, and you activate them in defense, and suddenly the switch flips, and now they're really into it, and they have good prey drive that they weren't exhibiting before that. That does happen, but it's such an anomaly that it's not worth banking on it. And for everyone that does, there's going to be 1,000 that don't, that you've put through this stress, then didn't turn out to be okay. So it's again like everything I'm saying, right? I'm saying this is a guideline. It's the same thing with dogs. As soon as I say activating dogs purely in defense is never productive, we're gonna go find a dog that it worked beautifully for, right? But that dog is such the exception to the rule that the odds don't make it worthwhile. For me, they don't make it worthwhile. But there is occasionally a dog that activates that way and then channels prey that wouldn't channel prey before you made them, before you stressed them in defense.
Solid video. Let's find one more. Where's my mouse? There it is. Oh, these are some great ones by him too.
Ah, yes. For you. Yeah, look at that.
Oh boy.
You two putting us in the feed.
See, this frustrates me. You see this?
Oh.
What do you think, Josh? Stop when you see something that looks good.
How about the training rituals? That sounds like a good one.
All right, let's see what
Theodora is a 7-year-old Yorkie Terrier. We brought her in and realized that she actually...
I know.
Paige must have done this one.
Another thing that's connected to this is as soon as I have engagement, meaning I know I can get my dog to pay attention to me,
Is there going to be a video?
we start to develop our rituals. And rituals are the cues for the dog about what's coming, when they're supposed to pay attention to and when they're not. And for our working dogs, we have extremely elaborate rituals, meaning I tell my dog beforehand in a different way what we're doing. Like I have a different ritual for search work. I have a different ritual for beginning obedience work. I have a different ritual for tracking. I have a different ritual for a variety of different behaviors, right?
Before we go any further, right? So these are the types of things we recommend for the general things you may be doing with your dog at home, right? Yeah, obviously you're not going to be out doing protection training and competition obedience and stuff like that, but what things do you do regularly that if you have a ritual or a way to quote-unquote cue your dog up for it, they could be more successful with it? Guests coming over the house. I've got a ritual for how I have guests come over the house if they're coming into the front door. Going for a walk. I've got a pretty clear way I get ready to go for my walk.
Yeah.
Feeding your dogs. I have a literally to a T way that I feed my dogs every single time that I feed them. Getting my dogs into the crate or out of the crate. I've got a way that I do that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Dogs are creatures of habit, right? So the more consistency we can layer with things, And the more structure and routine we could implement for these types of things, the easier it is for the dog to be compliant with it and be successful with it long term.
Yeah.
It's when you change things all the time, and every time somebody comes over the house, you change up what you do with your dog based on the person that it is. And when you go for the walk, depending on where you're walking, you treat it completely differently. That's when things go awry or array or whatever the fuck. Right?
Yeah. You know, I never even thought about it. It's just like I've now ingrained it so much on how I take Bender out.
Yeah.
Every day. And yeah, I guess it is a ritual because if I do it another way, then it's just never good. Yeah. Also, you like the exposure page?
Look at this face.
It's good. It's not too bright.
He's like, I'm ready to train your fucking dog. That's what he's saying right there.
It looks like he has jaundice, though, because of the overexposure.
I don't even know what that means. What is jaundice?
It's like when your skin turns yellow.
Oh, no.
Yeah, you have kidney problems, I think.
You should look into that, Michael.
And that way, I tell my dog before we do what we're going to do, right? And
and he doesn't mean literally tell them. He means that there is a routine or cues that you give for certain things to help the dog understand.
Yeah.
Rituals are incredibly important because when people talk about why we have engagement, right? The idea that I want you're paying attention to me when I teach you something, but I'm also going to ask you to pay attention to me and not other things in the environment as we move forward in our training. But my dog can't just pay attention to me all the time. It's not possible. You wouldn't want it. You don't want your dog.
Paige did film this. He's got the same mic. See that?
Oh.
Paying attention to you 24/7.
Did Michael also
right?
use this?
Not only is it impossible for them to concentrate that amount of time, but you wouldn't want your dog following around staring at you all the time. You want them to be able to turn it off and on. So how do they know when and where it's appropriate? I have to build in a way of telling them, right, when it is. Telling them when to pay attention and telling them when they can stop. So as soon as I have something to prompt, I begin to cue the dog before I do my engagement work. And I make a cue that I can transfer to new locations. So don't make the cue something that won't be there in the end. So here's the big deal. We were talking before about letting your dog out and then getting ready to train while your dog's out, right? So I got my bait pouch. I let my dog out. My dog's watching me. I put on my bait pouch. I fill it up with my stuff. I go get their leash. I go out my thing. And now we start training, right? That's my ritual, right?
Like you said, not a verbal thing that you're saying. It's a physical action of this predicts this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, later on, I'm walking with my dog out in the park, and I don't have my bait pouch on. I don't have any of that stuff on. Is that dog going to pay attention to you? No.
No.
Right? Because the whole signaling system for that was that. They had to see the food. They had to see the pouch. They had to see this ritual, right? So my ritual needs to be independent of that. In the beginning, it doesn't matter if I have the bait pouch there, but that's got to go away. And then I have to come up with a ritual that I can do anywhere. So I have different ones for different behaviors. My engagement one is after I've taken my dog out, my dog's gone to the bathroom, I put them up again, I get myself all set for training, I know that they know how to pay attention to me, I bring them out, and when I bring them out, I say, you ready, you ready, you ready? And then I have a few behaviors that I teach my dogs. I teach them a spin or a hand touch or something like that. These little reward-based behaviors I've taught them, and I do those, and then I go straight into engagement. First it's ready to work, and then straight into, yes, engagement, we do our thing, and then we build on that. And then once I have that, I go practice that in different places.
So he's talking a ritual specifically for engagement, which is great and fine, obviously.
Yeah.
As pet dog owners, and the reason why he puts emphasis on it has to be something that will be with you everywhere is because in the sport dog world, when you're competing, your dog is naked. You don't have any tools or anything on you. They have to just be compliant to you, obviously. As pet dog owners, we can do whatever the fuck we want. Right? Yeah, we could use an e-collar. The cue could be putting an e-collar on.
Yeah.
The cue could be putting the leash on. The cue could be enforcing our bed stay. The cue could be this. The cue could be that. Right? So don't overthink that one a little bit. Like I said, just making sure that you have a clear, specific way you do any individual thing that you do with your dog. That's it.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll move on here. Let's head to Mr. Muto's page, see what he's got. So there's a couple videos. Let me see if I can find them here that I recall watching that were very good. Actually, there's one in particular I really want to find. I don't know if I'll be able to find it or not because I think it's funny. Aha, here it is. Okay, so we were talking about, again, not to constantly say it, but the video of Tom working with that German Shepherd,
Yeah.
right? And how unnecessary the whole thing was.
Yeah.
I remember when Tyler posted this video 6 years ago. Getting further into just get the leash. You know what I mean? Just get the leash and make sure that the dog is away from the owner and make sure that you could de-escalate their behavior right away so you could actually start training them.
Yeah.
This is a video that he has titled Aggressive German Shepherd Handoff, right? Because again, German Shepherds are notoriously the dogs that do these things, right? Which is why we can get so many videos of them freaking out and acting aggressively. Mm-hmm. And this is how it's done. Let's see.
Is that his business?
Yeah.
Canine Connection.
Little blurb at the beginning.
Sit. 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 Come on. Sit. Don't even worry about that.
That's why I said, don't even worry about that. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
All right. We're here for training. I just got to get the dog.
Yeah, he's not going to listen to you right now anyway. All you're teaching him is that your commands are irrelevant. That's all. So, you're just going to walk.
Not feeding into the behavior. Quick little turn away. Stay calm. It's not that big of a deal. Dog has a muzzle on. Dog is on a prong collar in this video. There's no need to get a slip lead on them.
That's the worst he's ever. That's all right. That's okay. Where's the walk? Just wait till they go, yeah. Yeah, that's fine. Hey. Yeah, it's hard to not be nervous when you got to do it like that. But we're just going to probably walk down to the corner.
I mean, this is where I learned some of this stuff. The short leash, hold the dog on the short leash, pass off the other end of the leash, drop the fucking leash and walk away, give me the dog. That's it. See it right here. Look, he's got the leash.
Let go of your fur.
There it is.
Dang. Smooth as butter.
Come on.
That was pretty awesome. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and listen, this is not a surefire way that the dog's not going to react at you. Like, we did an in-home assessment the other day. I did this with the dog. And granted, we didn't have enough space to go, like, for a long walk and stuff. I did it in the house, which is going to amplify the behavior as opposed to out and about, obviously.
Yeah.
Right? And the dog still tried to fucking attack me once I got the leash, right?
Yeah.
Whatever. You know? Guess what? The dog had a muzzle on. It didn't matter. I had control over the dog. I was able to then get the dog where I needed to get them. I had direct control of the dog in that moment. So I was able to manage the situation and it was fine.
Yeah.
Right? But you see how much conflict you result.
Yeah, that was
It
crazy.
doesn't have to be this freaking production. It doesn't.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean your work's done. There's so much he's got to do with this dog still. It's just before you train the dog, you got to get some control of the dog. And this is why I like YouTube, right? Getting back to like why I think we're putting so much emphasis into our YouTube channel and stuff like that. You can't learn this through a 45-second long clip. You know what I mean? I may be able to get a 45-second long clip that's really entertaining of this dog trying to bite him a bunch of times right there. You know what I mean? But how am I supposed to learn? Like, I remember watching this video. This is where I learned some of this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? How was I supposed to do that if it weren't for longer form videos?
Yeah.
And this is why newer dog trainers coming out now, they're not getting this education. This is a 6.5-year-old video.
Yeah.
You know? That's it. Smooth.
Where's he out of?
Buffalo.
Buffalo.
Yeah. Phenomenal dog trainer.
Yeah, that was
Phenomenal dog trainer.
I mean, that couldn't have went any smoother.
Smooth.
That was awesome, actually.
What else we got here? Let me see if I can find some other ones. So Tyler also really pioneered a lot of modern prong collar work. So like there's a couple videos on here titled like Conversational Leash Work. He kind of called it that. Oh, this is a good one. Managing fear, aggression in the crate. Now here's the thing. This is 9 years ago, right? Again, I remember when this video came out as well. This was like his title video on his YouTube page and stuff. How do I say this, right? He overcomplicated a lot of things in certain places, but it was for the purpose of perfecting the craft.
Yeah.
He overcomplicated it because he himself wanted to so deeply understand these behaviors. And we'll watch it in a second here. It's been a long time since I've seen this video, obviously. But from what I recall, nothing was incorrect about what he did. It was just a little overcomplicated. But he overcomplicated it in a way that made it so that you could understand these behaviors more deeply.
Yeah.
So let's watch this. Managing fear, aggression in the crate.
All right, I'm here with Jack.
It's back when he was doing everything in his house, too.
Working on his issue with the kennel. As you saw in a previous video, Jack does not like
that little spice cabinet
to get him out of the kennel.
Very nice.
Right there.
I'll tell you, too. This is making me sound real, like, gatekeeper-y, you know? Newer dog trainers are kind of pussies about this stuff, too. Right? Like, honestly, look, he's just like, listen, this dog's going to try to kind of nip at me right now. Yeah. Guess what? The dog will get over it, right? Now, I'm not saying, listen, we want to put in place safety protocols and this and that.
Yeah.
But, like, if you're scared of dogs and you're in this industry, you're only going to make it so far, man. You're only going to make it so far. You got to assume the risks a little bit with some of this.
You can't go, oh.
And if you see Jack, can you zoom in on Jack really quick? It's pretty dark down
a little,
there.
Looks like a Bed Bath & Beyond coupon there.
He doesn't want to come out. You having trouble zooming?
Okay.
You got it? Okay. So that's my trusty wife, Jesslyn, manning the camera that she doesn't usually man.
Your trusty wife.
Trusty wife.
So I'm going to be working with Jack on getting in and out of the kennel. There's two traditional ways that somebody might approach something like this. Somebody might want to desensitize him or counter-condition him, rather, to a hand reaching in the kennel by using food, perhaps reaching in and then giving him a food reward, reaching in and giving him a food reward to try and get him to associate a hand coming in with good things. That's not going to work so hot for him right now. To start with, he's too stressed to take food. And also, you know, he's seeking safety right now. He's not seeking food. So that's not really going to be the solution to his problems.
That's a good point, man. Seeking safety, not seeking food. Which one is a more powerful reinforcement to the dog?
Safety.
You know what else is interesting about this? How many people would have labeled this dog aggressive? Just from that initial clip. Look at this dog's trying to attack the trainer in the crate.
Everybody knows.
Some might say, well, when he acts aggressive, to punish him, to give a correction, and that's not really going to help him out much either, because the whole point here is that he thinks something bad is going to happen, and if something bad does in fact happen, it's really only going to serve to confirm his suspicions, so to speak. So what we're actually going to be doing is we're going to be showing Jack how to self-soothe. I want to show him that even when I reach into the kennel, that if he's uncomfortable with that, he always has an escape route. So I'm going to use the basic leash work that I've started with him, using the leash as a guide and using the leash as a way to give him information about his choices, to show him that when my hand comes in, he can always move around it and come out of the kennel and walk right past me if he wants to. We're going to do that in a really non-confrontational, non-forceful way. So, can you zoom in?
Look at those pants.
You can. You might want to get down low so you can actually see
And the
Jack.
Crocs.
So Jack's in here, and when I reach in, he gets rather uncomfortable. So what I'm going to do, and I've started this...
This is where we need those 4K cameras.
So he's already a bit better. If you saw the video from yesterday, you saw that he was really snapping at me yesterday. So when I reach in, my body's off to the side, so he has a clear path out. My leash is ready here. When I reach in, before he gets too tense, I take my leash, and I show him the escape route, and I let him walk on by. Good boy. No force. If he wants to go back in, he's allowed to go back in right now. And we're going to do that with some repetition, but I do want a bit of time in between every repetition for him to be allowed to just feel the relief and feel that he actually averted any potential threat or any potential harm that he perceives, even though there really isn't any, by just walking away from me, that he doesn't need to growl, he doesn't need to snap at me, that none of those aggressive acts are actually necessary, that he always can walk away from conflict. This is really going to help him out in a few scenarios as he learns this. If he's ever cornered and there's people around, he's going to always learn how he can just move around and get himself to a more comfortable, safe place. So I move back in. You see he retreats. I reach. He's focusing on my hand, but then we guide him past. Good boy, Jack. Good. And then I can even walk away to further show him that there's no stress. You see when I walk away, he feels more comfortable poking his head out a little bit. He's a little bit weirded out by the camera. You can tell he's looking right at the camera. He hasn't had a lot of experience with the camera yet, so that's preventing him from really coming out all the way. When I did this with him earlier, he actually would come all the way out of the room when I would walk away. If I approach again, same thing. Off to the side, I want to make sure he has a clear path. I reach in as though I'm going to grab. Before he has a problem, I gently guide. Gently guide. Now this guiding only works because he has a foundation in what I call conversational leash work. So he already has a
throw that TM in there.
Understanding that the leash is not a conflict. The leash is a guide. The leash is a source of information and feedback for him. So when we're working with a dog in this type of a way, it's not always so much about reward and punishment as it is about guiding the dog and showing them how to exist more peacefully in their environment. And so we're going to do the same thing. I need to get my leash. And this time just me getting the leash out. He walked out, which is fine. Good boy, Jack. Good. You see he's starting to feel safer. Got a little kiss there even. Okay? So he's learning right away that I'm not a threat, that I'm not here for any conflict, I'm not going to pressure him or push him, and that he always has a way out. One more time. He's a little tense again. We guide, and he has his escape route. Good boy, Jack. This is going to take a lot of repetition for Jack to really understand there's no need for aggression. His brain is so much conditioned to respond this way that it's not going to change overnight. I'm going to have to do this over and over and over again. But all these little small actions over time are really going to build into a dog who's more trusting. And what we're actually teaching him here is how to self-soothe. Okay? So he's learning how he can find safety for himself without having to act aggressively. So how to find safety for himself by more social type behaviors. Reach in, gentle, guide. Good. My body language has to come away from him also as he comes out of the kennel, so he sees that there's no threat, there's no confrontation. Good. And that's it. Lots of repetition of that, and this guy is going to gain a lot of confidence and a lot of security knowing that he can communicate in his environment.
3 big points with this, right? Point number 1, he addressed at the beginning, counter conditioning is not the solution for this. Counter conditioning looks at this from the standpoint of we just need to make this not scary to the dog because then the dog won't feel the need to react, right? Point number 2, he's teaching the dog he refers to as like self-soothe here, right? Which is teaching the dog that when you're stressed, instead of reverting to fight, because it may be something you've learned in the past, again, going back to the protection training and how you train dogs to do these types of things, you actually can get away in some context, which is an important skill for a dog to learn, especially if they have a very strong fight drive. You could teach them, especially if they're scared, that flight drive is equally effective. And then third, the techniques he established in order to do this, right? Again, nothing is incorrect about what he said here. The reason why I said at the beginning it's a little overcomplicated is because in the case of him, right, as the trainer of this dog, as the dog starts to realize coming out for the training sessions is not that bad and is fun, it will alleviate this issue on its own, right? So he understands this as when you're initially working with this dog and needing to get them out of the crate and stuff, this is going to be a very effective method to do so with minimal resistance and minimal conflict. It's not something he's going to need to do thousands and thousands of reps of, because after a day, like I think he said this is a day after when the dog got dropped off initially, right? Yeah. After a couple of days, the dog's not going to be rehearsing the behavior anymore, and that's not going to be because he did a ton of repetitions. That's simply going to be because the dog is starting to enjoy his company more, right? So, phenomenal video. Let's find one more. it's crazy. I haven't watched these videos in so freaking long.
Bringing you back, huh?
Bringing me back. Oh. Let's see. See anything good?
All kinds of things.
Actually, you know what? I think there's...
Is he not making videos anymore?
I think he uses like an actual... Tyler's an entrepreneur at heart. I'll give him that, right?
Okay.
He's got a page, actually a website he created called Consider the Dog.
Okay.
Which is basically like a Patreon kind of thing, but he made it, right? So it's a subscription service that you pay for. Yeah. You pay a monthly fee for. And not only him, but a bunch of other trainers he gets on to create videos for this Consider the Dog page.
Gotcha. So all his videos go there.
All of his videos go there now.
Gotcha.
Okay, let's see what we got here. Day 10, socialization progress. I think this might be the same dog. Let's take a look at this.
Hey everybody, this is Tyler from Canine Connection Dog Training, and this video is going to show Nina, a 2-year-old pit bull who's with us for dog aggression. She came to us from Pennsylvania from a rescue organization, and a few other trainers have already worked with her a little bit and given her a nice start for us, which makes our job a little bit easier, but they couldn't fully get her over her dog aggression, so we're just stepping in to play our part. We've had her in for about a week at this point, and this is actually the first time that I've let her off the leash in the socialization yard. I still have a muzzle on her for safety, but so far she hasn't actually tried to bite any dogs or attack any dogs. But being that she's only been with us for 1 week, we still keep the muzzle on just in case. She's doing really well. Her body language obviously is really intense. And part of that is just her nature, but she clearly has not had a lot of social experience. She has very poor social skills and very poor ability to read other dogs. Now, this behavior you're going to see in a minute was a little bit hard for me to read at first, this kind of intensity that you're seeing right here. I didn't quite know how to judge her when she first came in. It was hard for me to tell if she was playful or if this was the beginning of something that could be aggressive, but it's become clear.
Also, this video is from like 7 or 8 years ago. You know, this is before we really deeply understood a lot of the like, let some of this stuff play out. And when socialization primarily was done in a manage everything kind of mentality, which is why I'm saying it's hard to read, because a lot of it before was like, if you don't know what it is, shut it down, stop it. Right. Yeah. Which obviously we know now doesn't do these dogs any good as far as progressing.
Her intentions are actually good here. So she's a bit intense about her desire to play, but she is indeed attempting to play with other dogs.
And the intensity comes from, one, her nature, like he said, right? She's a pit bull. She's a very intense dog, obviously. And 2, it comes from under socialization, right? We've consistently seen, we have a video called, will we be able to help this under-socialized dog, I believe. And in that one, we show a dog that's never socialized before, right? And the dog, quote unquote, tried to attack another dog, but it was like, started off as like almost like a weird play thing, you know? And it was very hard to read as well, but because the dog was so under-socialized, the intensity was so high because it was the first time they were just like unleashed, you know what I mean? So you got to be aware of those things when you're socializing these dogs. And as they become better socialized and more exposed to these types of things, that intensity level comes down as the interaction and the scenario becomes less novel over time.
Yeah.
Here you're going to see Lobo do what he does best. He's just excellent at helping dogs that haven't had enough socialization experience, whether they're nervous or just overly intense. He seems to just know how to handle them. So he's the first dog that's actually engaged her in play, and he's just teasing her a little bit and getting her to come out of her shell. And you can see here now that she definitely is in a playful mood. This is not aggressive behavior, even though her hackles are up a bit and she's a bit nervous because this is new to her. she's definitely not approaching him with ill intentions. If she were, he wouldn't be there right now. He's good at reading dogs, and he would have left a long time ago.
So whatever. So we're not going to watch this whole thing because it's going to be a bunch of that, obviously. But it's really interesting. This is where a lot of this conversation started of us mislabeling dogs as dog aggressive. Like, this dog likely was not dog aggressive. This dog was likely just extremely reactive.
Yeah.
And because of that, all the scenarios they tried to socialize the dog in were improper, which led to incidents.
Yeah.
All right. Just because we're kind of on this topic here. Hang on. Brandon Fouché. Okay. So Tyler and I started getting at the same time, maybe like 4 years ago, probably about 4 years ago, very into this guy, Brandon Fouché, right?
Okay.
I'm sure you've heard me talk about this guy for sure, right?
I think so.
Brandon Fouché, as you can see, he's only got 4,000 subscribers on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't post very much, right? And Brandon Fouché has this, and we'll do a whole freaking episode on this guy because the amount that I learned from this dude is ridiculous. And I actually had a freaking phone consultation with this guy. I paid $450 for 1 hour of this guy's time, like a couple of years ago, to pick his brain. And I couldn't even get one word in. He just talked the entire time. Right? Wow. And then I tried to pay for another one and he told me no. I was pissed.
What? Really?
Yeah. Long story. We'll get into it on an entire episode that we do on this guy. But his whole thing is like, he doesn't do obedience training. He is actually against obedience training. He does not like it. What? He will not teach a dog to sit down, stay, this, that, whatever. His whole thing is everything is socialization. Everything is hierarchy. Everything is let the dogs work it out almost to a fault. Right?
Whoa.
But Tyler and I both started getting into this guy at the same time. And we had this like period of a couple of months where Tyler did a phone consult with him the same time I did a phone consult with him. I did one. And Tyler and I were on the phone with each other like every other day, just like, hey, did you try that thing that we talked about the other day? You try that thing we talked about the other day? Right?
Wow.
Whatever. So he's got a ton of freaking great videos, you know? But there's one, here we go. This video, right? That was this is the first video I ever saw of Brandon Fouché's, and it's very interesting. Mostly his dialogue over when he's talking about socializing. So we'll watch this just to wrap it all up, just getting into, again, just watching, in my opinion, good dog trainer or good socialization.
Look at me. Well, the question in the statement goes around all the time. Are you an alpha to your dog? And then we want to know, what does that mean? To most people, being an alpha means being able to tell your dog to sit, to down, to stay, all of the training scenarios that mean absolutely nothing to the dog in terms of dominance. It is a natural thing that dogs do. I never met a dog that didn't know how to sit, down, stay, away from anything. They come here knowing how to do that. And so, what makes an alpha? Meaning, how can the human being be as close to a dog in nature as they can? And it doesn't mean crawling on all fours.
Dude, kind of getting some goosebumps right now watching this. I just like the way he speaks. He's just like, he really tells you, you know?
Yeah.
What an alpha's job is being able to hormonally control his pack by the way he makes them feel. He makes them submit to his will through the strength of his personality. And that means by only saying what he doesn't like. And what he likes, he ignores, and that's how they know where they fit in. If we could just tell our dogs what we don't like only, that means that everything else we like until we don't like something else. Do not give your dog a command to stop doing something, then make him sit or down or stay, and then reward him for that action, because that's too much happening at one time. You tell him what you don't like.
I mean, come on though, right? Like, what do people do? They try to say, no, sit, down, come, this, that, right? Like they say 17,000 different things in the span of like 2 seconds, and it's too much information for the dog to digest at once, right? Which is why, like he said at the beginning, can we be as in touch with our dogs like they should be in nature, right? And only communicate in the most simple, clear manner to them. And if only we did that, things would be so much easier.
And you don't care whether he sits or downs at all. Because once you reward him for doing something, after he has done the thing that you don't like, simply by putting something into place, by making him down, he's going to associate it with what he is hormonally connected to. And that is what he was doing prior to you telling him to stop doing it. And so that means he's going to get a mixed message.
Dog reacts out the window. We tell the dog come. We give the dog a cookie for coming. They are going to have a mixed message of what's expected in that moment. Nothing you did communicated clearly to the dog about the thing that you don't want them to do in that moment because of the way you delivered that information.
There's no leader in the wild tells a dog or an animal to stop doing something and then turns around and kisses it and gives it a reward. It just doesn't happen. Those kinds of things have their place. And you know where that place is? When we're teaching our dog a trick. Lay down, roll over, a high five, play dead, things like that. When you're actually putting the thought in the dog's head, but not rewarding the dog for the thought that he placed in his head. And we'll go over that again at some point. But when you see these dogs doing what they're doing, where does training come in? Where do commands come in? No, we only say to them what we don't like if they do something that makes us feel uncomfortable. Something that makes me feel uncomfortable that may be a danger to him or someone else. I'm going to step in and say something. Until then, all is good in the hood. All is good in the hood. We'll continue.
He ends every one of his videos like that too with "We'll continue."
Jeez,
I fucking love it. All right, so good episode today here, breaking into just good dog training, right? Or I should even specify what I think is good dog training. Dog training that helped me throughout my career and how I think that it could potentially help others.
Yeah,
that's it. That's all that today is about.
Yeah, we really need to get Muto on here.
Last time I talked to him was when I was in Cincinnati, and I called him about an issue that I was having, and I talked to him, and I told him, I was like, hey, I'm sure you've seen the podcast I've been doing. I'd love to have you on it. He said, anytime. So all we got to do is we got to make that. We could probably do a virtual one if you wanted to, but I want to do I like in person. I don't like these virtual podcasts. You know, it's just like so disconnected, I feel like. So we need to make a trip down there. We'll do one with Tyler. We'll do one with Dave, and we'll do one with Alex.
Yep.
So coming at you soon here. So that's it. All right. You know, hope you guys like this stuff. If you guys are interested in reviewing more about any of these people, again, Michael Ellis, Tyler Muto, Brandon Fouché. I will have their names in the description. You guys could YouTube them all day long and watch all the videos that your heart desires.
There you go.
Until next time, happy St. Patrick's.